Episode 62 Israel vs. Hamas. Good evening, I am Tomas Guevara, and this is the channel Rewriting the Reality. Subscribe to this channel and we can start sending energy for the pacification of this region in the Middle East. The conflict between Israel and Palestine is an ancient divide, but it's also a modern divide that has aggravated ancient culture and possession, and the ancient ties on both sides play into the modern and today. And in that, there is a tremendous divide in relation to very strong grudges that neither side wants to let go of, and both sides are steeped in justification. It's a difficult situation, but it was almost to be expected. This has been brewing and seething for more than a half-century. Since Israel became a state. Since they took the land from Palestine, that is a long time to be boiling, and it has been. It's been a pressure cooker that is long overdue to blow. Therefore, in a manner of speaking, it was inevitable. It is surprising that it didn't ignite sooner. This is one of those expressions of us that make it impossible to predict what you will do or what you won't do. It would have been something that would have been easy to predict that this would have happened decades ago, but it didn't. Whenever they are conquering people, they generally establish dominance, and the stronger the dominance is, the more repression is expressed in relation to what is being dominated. And I would say that Israel has expressed a very strong, fierce dominance that defied challenge. And they established even more of a fierce dominance when they generated that conflict with Egypt, and that stood and has stood for decades as an example of that domination. Regardless of what culture it is, regardless of what country or state it is, wars are fought over land, and whoever wins is the dominating force. The result is that there's always someone who is going to be dominated, which will be the one that is oppressed. Therefore, the contribution is shifting individually and sending out ripples. Recently, I talked to my friend Virginia, who loves to follow the news. She is an individual that is tremendously passionate about this subject and what is happening between these two cultures, these two countries, and an individual that is considerably judgmental about one and supportive of the other. And I will express the same now that I said to my friend, that simply matches energy. And in that, whether it be Palestine and Israel or Russia and Ukraine or any other cultures and countries, it doesn't matter who it is and who's fighting whom. Taking sides matches energy. Of course, everyone and we all are entitled to our own individual guidelines. We are all entitled to our own individual opinions and likes and dislikes and evaluations of right and wrong, for ourselves only. This means that you can express that you think that certain behaviors, certain practices are wrong and that you wouldn't do them and you wouldn't engage them, but that's where it shall stops. Generating judgments about other people and their cultures and their practices, no matter how offensive they may be to you, it's a matter of remembering that you chose to live where you live. You chose to be in the culture that you chose. They chose to be in the cultures that they chose and to live where they live. And their beliefs and what they engage in, and even in relation to other people that perhaps don't live there or aren't part of the culture but become caught up in the whirlwind of the conflict, those people chose to be there at that time. And if they are caught up in the whirlwind of the conflict, they choose to be there. It's not an accident. And none of you are in the bodies and the minds of those people that are involved, and what their convictions are, what their guidelines are, what they believe. And whatever it is that they believe it just as strongly as whatever it is you believe. Therefore, any of us that moves in the direction of justifying and judging and choosing sides, you are contributing to the very things that you're judging. Consequently, you are engaging the same as the people that are engaging in the conflict. You're creating conflict also, and therefore you're contributing to that energy. We all do ripple out, and what is important is that each of us as individuals are aware of that and being more self-aware, recognizing that in shifting, what is exceptionally important is acceptance. And that was what happened with our mass event throughout our world with our virus of COVID. this was partially about the acceptance of differences. Since then, we have presented situations to ourselves that are extremes and that illustrate the importance and the need for acceptance, and the tremendous devastation that happens when there is no acceptance. And there are none in these wars. It's nothing but conflict and blame. And this is what comes from blame. The interesting thing about Palestine, Israel, and the Muslims is they worship the same God. For the Muslims is Allah, for the Israels Yahweh. Considering the numbers of deaths, it seems that none of these gods are powerful enough to protect his people. In fact, let me tell you that there is not a supreme being that you can call God. There is only the universal consciousness, that is not a being, nor a thing, but love. In the episode 54, I explained the near-death experiences and how anyone that experienced it feel an overpowering sense of love, independent as they are from Israel, Palestine, or any other region of the world. That means that love is everything. Then why are these people fighting and killing each other? Land? I remember that God promised the Israel people certain land, but he never keeps his promise. Israel has 20,770 square kilometers and 9.3 million people. It is about 41% the size of Costa Rica and twice its population. Israel had a GDP of approximately $395 billion, making it one of the more developed and prosperous countries in the Middle East. This economic success is driven by various sectors, including technology, agriculture, defense, and tourism. That means that if they want, they could buy enough land in Brazil that has 8,515 million square kilometers, 411 times the size of Israel, and they could move to a better place and forget about the promised land. Also, they can sell their land to the Muslims and get a lot of money. In my opinion, what they are doing doesn't make sense. About 3,470 years ago, the Jews flew Egypt in the so-called Exodus. I estimate that they were around 2.4 million people, taking into consideration that the records say they were about 600,000 men, not counting their families. Today, the Arab Republic of Egypt has a land area of approximately 1,001,450 square kilometers. The boundaries of modern Egypt have evolved over time due to various historical and geopolitical factors. The land area during the Exodus, as described in the biblical accounts, would have been considerably smaller than modern Egypt, as it likely encompassed the area near the Nile River and the eastern part of the Nile Delta. That means that geography Egypt has prospered, and Israel has kept only a fraction, even small, in comparison. The Jews interpreted the name Jerusalem to mean city of peace or foundation of peace. The Arabs as the holy city, but it has never been either of both. During the Exodus, the Jews were lost for 40 years, and in my opinion, they are still lost. And the worst is that they are stubborn, living in a place surrounded by millions of people that don't love them. All the little efforts to overcome that situation and change do seem like nothing, and they're everything. And it could make a difference. My recommendation is to call for an understanding of both parts, to respect anyone's beliefs about religion, because religion is an elemental part of our reality, but is only a belief, and we only need to accept that. Or move to Brazil, that is a really good option. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel.